So we're going to talk for a second about the first 10 homework problems in section 1.2. 1.2 is about variables and constants. So to make sure you understand the terminology, in a typical hourly wage job, the hours are variable. You might work 40 hours one week, 20 hours another. The wage is typically constant. I'm not talking about overtime, but your hourly wage stays the same while your hours vary. And so therefore your total wage is variable from week to week, depending on how many hours you work. So in a salaried job like mine, the hours are variable. I might work lots of hours one week and less another week. The hourly wage is variable because my total wage is constant. So because the wage I make for the year is constant, my hourly wage is variable because my hours vary. So variable quantities are those that vary or change in value. Constant quantities have a fixed value. So later on when you get to word problems, I see people get these confused. Make sure that anytime you have just a pure number like 50 or 200 or something like that, that's never going to be a variable. That's a constant. So whether something is a constant or variable is not quite as clear as we make it seem. So on quizzes and that sort of thing, sometimes we'll make it seem like it's really clear, but what's important is to understand the concept of variable and constant and be able to explain your logic. So an example of that is your bank balance on January 1st, 2015. So you could think of that as a constant because we specified a date. You could look at your balance for that date on your at your bank, and you could find out what your bank balance was on January 1st. So you can think of that as a constant. But you can also think of it as a variable because maybe throughout that day you deposited money a couple of times. So your account balance in the morning is different from your account balance at the end of the day. So again, what's important is to understand the concept of constant and variable, not to get too wrapped up about which one is which in a particular case. Okay, so here's an example from your book. State whether each quantity is a variable quantity or a constant quantity. So the number of days in a leap year, that one is definitely a constant because by definition, the number of days in a leap year is 366. So that one's not going to change. The shoe size of a 4-year-old is probably changing a lot throughout the year as the kid grows. So that one is pretty definitely variable. The length of fencing that runs along the entire backyard property line of a certain house, probably constant because that backyard property line has been surveyed and it has a certain length. And then the amount of money you earn when you work 12 hours at a part-time job, I'm going to say that one's variable because we don't know what your wage is. You might claim that it's constant because at a particular part-time job you have a particular wage, whether we know it or not. Again, the important thing is understand the concept of constant and variable, be able to kind of back up your choice with logic.